and commence.
Okay, we can start. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. The first thing I will do is introduce ourselves. I am Councillor Jean Adamo, and I chair the licensing subcommittee. I'd like to ask my colleagues, the councillors, to introduce themselves, please.
Councillor Corley Harrison from Crouch End Ward.
Reg Rice, Tottenham Hill.
Thank you. And the officers? We have with us our officers.
So, Dale Barrett, licensing team leader.
Michelle Williams, legal advisor.
Nazia Chowdhury, principal committee coordinator and clerk to this meeting.
Rachel Bonus, I'm shadowing the legal officer.
Nishar Bashar, licensing officer.
Excellent, thank you. And the applicant's barrister is here. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good evening. I'm David Dadds. I have my client next to me on the virtual screen. Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, that's fine. Thank you very much. And we have a number of residents with us. I can't see them all, so I'm not quite sure if they're all here, but I have a long list. And perhaps when the ones I can see is Barbara Hall. Is that correct? Anyway, perhaps you can introduce yourself when you do speak. Okay. So did you say anything? Okay, thank you. As I understand, there are some late papers that came through. Can I ask you, Mr. Dodds, whatever you are, you have any object, or are you objecting to any of the papers, or are you happy?
Sorry, are you?
Some papers came late to us. I think some of them was yesterday. It may be some today. Naz will advise if I'm correct.
Well, I only received the additional papers yesterday in relation to a grid, pages 1 and 2, agenda item 6. And the only question I asked yesterday is who is producing this document. So I needed to answer that, and I've not received anything today, or I've certainly not had the opportunity to see anything today because I've been in court, and obviously I've only just logged on to do the hearing.
Okay. Can I ask some?
Chair, can I respond to that, please?
Yes,
so,
please.
Mr. Dadds, yesterday, sorry, to start, the list of complaints received is already in the pack, and the licensing officer will be speaking to that, licensing RA. Your office contacted us yesterday wanting to know if there was an updated version of that. So we had to run the report again, and that updated document was then sent on to your office as requested.
Yeah. Yes, I've got that, but I didn't ask for it to go into the pack. I asked for an updated report.
Right, okay, so it's because that updated report was just leading on the back of what the licensing authority RA was already speaking to. So that's why it's been included. So if you've got any objections to that, then I suppose now's the time for you to say that to the committee if you want them to have any special consideration around that.
Well, what it is that I don't have the full details, so that's the problem. And that's why I was asking for an update and who are the interested parties and what the outcomes are. But I'm happy for the committee to have that list and for us to discuss it, because I think it's it's just keeping it clear for everyone.
Yes.
So I'm happy with that. But I haven't received anything today, or I haven't read anything today.
The document that I've sent through today was actually just a copy of the existing premises license. Which is
I have no
really
objection to that.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you, madam.
And now we start. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available for public viewing. We don't have any apologies or urgent business. Am I right, Naz? Declaration of interest? I don't think so. Is no indication of that. The summary of the procedure. The procedure for this meeting has been emailed to all participants by the clerk. For the purpose of any members of the public watching, we will first hear from the licensing officer. After that, the objectors will present their case and the committee and applicant will have the opportunity to ask questions. Then the applicant will present their application and the committee and objectors will have the opportunity to ask questions. All parties will then have the opportunity to sum up, and then the meeting will conclude to allow the committee to deliberate and reach a decision. This decision will be then provided in writing within 5 working days of this meeting. Now I will ask the licensing officer to introduce your report, please, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Before I start, can I just clarify with Mr. Dadds, please? I believe the licensing RA sent through the noise warning letter and the report last week, just to make sure that you've also had sight of those also, Mr. Dadds.
Right, sorry, what is this document? Is it in the agenda?
It was sent through as an additional update from the licensing officer last week to your office.
No,
And it was at the licensing, the noise warning letter.
one moment. Is that the letter dated the 14th September?
John, let me just see.
Is it from Stephen McDonald?
Yes, it does. It say noise warning letter on that letter? Sorry, I haven't got.
It's this, Dahlia.
That seems to be the one.
It says warning letter. The council received
Dated.
complaints about noise and nuisance on the 14th of September 2021.
Yes, that's the one.
Yes, I have that.
You do. Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
And the statement, Dale?
Sorry.
And was there a witness statement as well?
There was a witness statement alongside it also, yes.
If Mr. Dadds can confirm that he's received that.
Yes, I have. Yes, thank you.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Okay, the panel have before them the this evening an application for a new premises license submitted by the Broadway at 266 Muswell Hill, Broadway N10, within the Fulton's Green Ward. The application is submitted by the Broadway Muswell Hill Limited and is seeking the time shown at section 1.2 in the report for the license for activities of regulated entertainment, live music and recorded music. Sunday to Thursday, 11 a.m. till midnight, Friday to Saturday, 11 till 2 a.m. Late night refreshments, Sunday to Thursday, 11 p.m. till midnight, and Friday to Saturday, 11 p.m. till 2 a.m. For the supply of alcohol, the application is seeking Sunday to Thursday, 11 a.m. till midnight, and Friday to Saturday, 11 a.m. until 2 a.m. The supply of alcohol they're asking for as both on and off the premises, and the hours that they wish to be open to the public are Sunday to Thursday, 11 a.m. to midnight, and Friday to Saturday, 11 a.m. to 2:30. Along with that, the application is seeking some seasonal variations for opening 1 hour longer than ordinarily permitted, with all licensed activities to cease 30 minutes beforehand, and then so that would be things like Christmas Eve, and then on New Year's Eve to open until 3:30 on New Year's Day in the morning, and for 11 until 2 is operating hours on any Sunday immediately preceding a bank holiday Monday. The details of the application can be found at Appendix A in the pack. Representations have been received during the consultation period on this matter. You have within the pack representations from the licensing authority, from the Metropolitan Police, who are here this evening, Chair, and also a number of residents and the ward members that has also submitted on this matter. The recommendation in considering the representations received and what is appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, the subcommittee can take the following steps. It may determine to grant the application as requested, grant the application whilst imposing additional conditions and or altering in any way the proposed operating schedule, exclude any licensable activities to which the application relates, or reject the whole or part of the application. Members are aware that regardless of whichever decision is taken, that clear and concise reasons are given, and it must be appropriate in order to promote the licensing objectives. In terms of background to this matter, the premises are situated along a parade of retail units with residential above and to the rear. The premises is operated as a cafe with the ability to sell alcohol for many years, which then changed into a more alcohol-led business as a wine bar and then into a fully fledged nightclub for a number of years. The previous owner, Mr. Yano, took the license over in 2015 and had operated it as a nightclub. The premises license was subsequently reviewed by the police in 2017 due to ongoing concerns with antisocial behaviour and a failure on the part of the then licence holder to actively manage issues arising, as well as not cooperating with the police in the investigation of incidents, thereby not upholding or promoting the licensing objectives. The police were asking for conditions to be added to the licence at this time under that review, but the licensing subcommittee, after hearing from all the parties, determined that a revocation would be the step they wish to take. The revocation, however, did not take effect as the then licence holder appealed the decision to the court, and on advice from an independent barrister, the council agreed to a number of conditions to be imposed on the licence, and this was then consented to by the magistrate. So, Chair, just to clarify, so there was a slight reduction in hours. There was a reduction in hours on the licence at this point, and it had a number of conditions added to it. So paramount to this was that the premises must not be operated as a nightclub, and that after 11 p.m. on any day, all alcohol shall be sold only at a table with a meal. Sound from the premises shall not be audible at the front facade of the nearest residential premises at any time, and there shall be no entry permitted after 1 a.m. on any day. The then licence holder, Mr. Yanu, actually then remained closed for a period of time, and once he attempted to reopen again under the new conditions, it proved difficult for him to do so. He subsequently sold the premises onto the current premises licence holder, Mr. Savas Morgan. Mr. Morgan transferred the licence, the existing premises licence, in February 2020, and he's both the premises licence holder and the DPS at this time. The area at Muswell Hill Broadway had been home to a number of late night venues in previous years. It was the main hotspot for crime generation caused by the nighttime economy in Haringey some years ago, but there has been significant change in the area since that time. There were previously 3 late night nightclubs and a public house, as well as a late night kebab premises that operated in the early hours of the morning in this area, and all of these venues have had their premises license reviewed by the police, save the pub itself. In most recent times, residents have reported incidents of antisocial behaviour in the area. Some of the concerns raised relate to the Broadway, others relate to the Mossy Wells and the venue N10. Residents have expressed concerns of the patrons using the private car park area at the rear of the Broadway in the residential landscaped area to park cars and congregate and play music once they have left the venue. Members will note from the letters of representation that a lot of the concerns raised has been around the operation of a late night venue or club in the area and the appropriateness of such an establishment in what has become a predominantly or mainly residential area. The venue has been in this area for many years, and while some residents do not approve of late night venues in the area, this of itself is not a valid reason to refuse a licence. Representations must be relevant, and in the case of other persons must not be frivolous or vexatious. The licensing authority has communicated with Ms. Bianca Morgan since the Broadway started to operate, but has not had any communication with Savas Morgan, the actual named licence holder in DPS. And he's also proposed as the DPS for this new application the panel has before them. Complaints received from residents or concerns raised by the out of hours officers have been referred and discussed with Ms. Morgan directly in order to request a response on how the concerns raised would be dealt with or mitigated to address the licensing objectives. The premises has planning permission since 1968 to operate as a restaurant, but required to ensure that no noise nuisance should emanate from its use that would affect nearby residents. In September 21, Chair, just as further background, just to give the landscape of the area, a new premises licence was granted to the venue a few doors away at 272 Muswell Hill Broadway. That operates as, the venue N10. And you can see there that the latest hours awarded there was for the Friday and Saturday until midnight. At section 2.9, you have the times for the Mossy Wells at 266 Muswell Hill Broadway, and they have a 1 a.m. Thursday through to Sunday, though I'm aware that they do close by midnight, mainly through choice. Here at section 3, we go on to speak about the licensing policy. So the committee will also wish to be aware of the guidance issued under section 182 of the Licensing Act 2003. And licensing, of course, is about regulating the provision of licensed activities on licensed premises. The terms and conditions attached to various permissions are focused on matters which should be within the control of individual licensees and others granted relevant permissions. Accordingly, these matters will centre on the premises and places being used for licensed activities and the vicinity of those premises and places. Chair, I won't read through all of that because I know the panel has read that, but just to highlight section 3.4 that the relevant representations are made. And this authority will demand stricter conditions with regard to noise control in areas that have denser residential accommodation. But this will not limit opening hours without regard for the individual merits of an application. This authority will consider each application and work with parties concerned to ensure that adequate noise control measures are in place. Any action taken to promote licensing objectives will be appropriate and proportionate. The licensing authority may not impose conditions unless its discretion has been exercised following receipt of relevant representations and it is satisfied as a result of the hearing that it is appropriate to impose conditions to promote one or more of the 4 licensing objectives. Chair, if I point also to section 4 of the report, where relevant representations are made, the council will consider the proposed hours on their individual merits. Notwithstanding, the council may require stricter conditions in areas that have denser residential accommodation to prevent public nuisance. I'm just repeating what I've probably said before, Chair. Chair, can I just highlight, please, within the pack, some of the paperwork, because it's a little bit out of sync. So within the licensing authorities representation, Chair, there was appendix LA1, which can be found from page 61 to 91. There is the list of complaints. This was the initial list of complaints, which is at page 93, and the updated One was the list that we spoke to earlier with Mr. Dadds, which was sent yesterday. At LA2, which is on page 103 of the bundle, is the warning letter that was sent out to the license holder, which was asking for highlighting the visit that had been carried out by the enforcement team, what they had found, requesting CCTV footage from the license holder, and speaking about the potential for a review. And on page 55, Chair, you will find the police representation. And the residents' representations start from page 27. Chair, you will note that the application submitted within the operating schedule for this application, the applicants have put forward that they do not intend or would be happy with that condition being carried forward, that the premises will not operate as a nightclub, although it is asking for the 2 o'clock finish also, Chair. And of course you have the residents' representations, Chair, who are all speaking to what they believe is the likely impact, and indeed going on matters that they say that they are experiencing at this time, which they are able to speak to the panel when you come to speak to them, Chair. And Chair, there is the overview of this matter, unless you have any direct questions for me, or any of the panel have any direct questions for me.
Thank you. Are there any questions from members? Yes, Councillor Rice and then Councillor Harrison. Yeah, Councillor Rice.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Adamo. Can I just be clear about the current status of the license? In the police report at page 55, the penultimate paragraph, it says the premises was sold in 2019 and Mr. S. Morgan took over the existing license. But I tend to think that I heard the license officer say that that's not the correct position, that no one's got the previous license now defunct. Is that right?
The existing license continued on, so Mr. Morgan is now the holder of that license and he is the DPS, and he transferred that license into his ownership in February 2020.
So has he got a license now then?
He does indeed. There is an existing license. A copy of it was sent to everybody today, Jay. So you should.
Why is he applying for a new license then if he's got a license already?
Well, Mr. Dadds will be able to answer that question for you when you come to. You can ask him that, certainly. Okay. Okay. I mean, the police officer has put an explanation on page 56 to say that I've contacted Mr. Morgan's legal representative using the details provided on the new application. I was told that the new application was submitted because the conditions in Appendix 3, that's on the existing license, do not apply to Mr. Morgan as they have been imposed during premises operation under another DPS. But Mr. Dadds will be the person to best give you a view as to why his clients wanted to go for a new license.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you. That well, one of my questions was on the timeline of ownership, so that's answered that. The second question, obviously this is for a new application. Have there been requests for an application review since the amendments that had been put through on the existing licence?
No, there has been no formal request for a review at this time.
Okay. Mr. Todd, you have your hand up. Is there? Do you have a question for the officer?
Yes, please. Clarification on the report, if I may.
Yes.
Officer, in relation to venue 10, do you know if there's any temporary events that they've had?
They have had a recent TENS, yes.
Yeah, can you just clarify what those are, please? Because you gave the hours of midnight, I think it's important to have the dates of the 10s, please, and what time too.
Okay, so there was a recent 10s previous weekend. Let me just get the dates for you, please.
Particularly if there's any for last year and this year, please.
Okay, sorry, Chair, that may take me a while, so I can certainly look up
You
and
can
come back to you.
Yeah, come back.
Yeah.
Can I clarify something? I noticed on the paper, all the papers, they refer to that emails and letters sent to the applicant, but is it still no response up to date from him?
I can address you to that later if you like.
Okay.
Or I could do it now if you want. It's up to you.
Well, if it's a brief answer, please do, yes.
Yes.
Telling me.
Yes, the DPS, Mr. Morgan and Bianca Morgan, both are joint shareholders and owners of the business, and that Mr. Morgan travels a lot, so he's away abroad, so contact has been difficult. We've had a discussion with the police, and we've agreed that we will, with the next 8 weeks, vary that, so we'll have a different DPS. But Mrs. Morgan is always present at the premises, and she's in effect the manager of the general manager and director of the business.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions? Sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Chair, can I just say in 2020, 110 was one temporary event notice was submitted, and that was going through till 1 a.m. Understand? Sorry, till 2, 7 till 2. No 10s in 2021. And there was a 10s, not last weekend, previous weekend, that was going through, that's Saturday until 2 a.m. That was their first 10s of 2022.
Yes, thank you, officer.
Are there any questions from the licensing officer or the police on this report? To clarify, no?
No, Chair.
Okay. Do the objectors, some of them are with us. Do you have any questions for the officer? I can't see anybody indicated. Okay. In that case, if there is no more questions, I'll come to the licensing officer. Shah, when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry. Okay, the licensing authority is making a representation to this new application for 266 Muswell Hill Broadway. The main reason for making this application is relating to the licensing objective, the prevention of public nuisance. The premises has been associated with antisocial behaviour in the late evenings. This has ranged from music noise emanating from the venue, ongoing antisocial behaviour in the area, as well as noise nuisance complaints from residents due to both people noise and music noise emanating from the premises. This has ranged from nuisance from people noise, illegal minicab hire issues, cars parked illegally, allegations of drugs being consumed in the vicinity from people attending the venue, and the use of the car park area at the Pinnacle by patrons of the venue to congregate and socialise once they have left the venue. This has also has been raised as issues by the residents. Whilst the licensing authority is unable to speak to any witnessing of the antisocial behaviour by officers themselves, we are able to attach to this representation emails of complaints and video footage submitted by the residents in relation to the ongoing issues they are experiencing. As Ms. Barrett has said, this can be found on pages 61 to 91 in the report. The antisocial behaviour enforcement officers carried out a visit on 19th of November 2021 and found some non-compliance with the current licence conditions. A warning letter was sent to Mr. Savas Morgan, and this is on page 103 of the reports, requesting CCTV footage for the specified date and time. However, this request for CCTV was not complied with by Mr. Morgan. The antisocial behaviour enforcement officers found that there were no meals being sold to accompany the alcohol being sold to patrons, and that the premises was operating as a nightclub. A new application that is subject to this representation was submitted a week later. The licensing authority have not spoken to the DPS, the appointed DPS, Mr. Savas Morgan, at any time. We note that Mr. Savas Morgan has been put forward as a nominated DPS under the new application, but cannot support this as there has been no previous communication with Mr. Morgan. There is no doubt that he therefore has any day-to-day knowledge of the management and concerns raised by residents. Complaints received have been communicated to Mrs. Bianca Morgan, who operates the premises. Ms. Bianca Morgan has shown that she is willing to work with the licensing authority to address concerns raised with her directly. Ms. Morgan has advised that a noise limiter has been purchased. However, it is unclear to the authority if the limiter has been installed. We are not aware that the noise environmental health officer has been involved in any such process to date. The times being sought under the new application will lead to continuing antisocial behaviour impacting on nearby residents. Consideration to a 2 a.m. licence with no conditions to control if the venue is operated as a nightclub on a Friday and Saturday night will certainly have an impact on residents in terms of noise and patrons' behaviour. The current operation under the existing has received 18 complaints in recent months. However, we have updated the complaints list, which was sent on earlier this week. The operating schedule has also states that the music will be played at a reasonable level. We are unclear as to what this actually means. One person's view of reasonable level may not necessarily be another person's view. Clarity around measures that can be placed to ensure music levels do not bleed through the premises to affect residents in the same block, such as vibration through the building or music noise that will impact the residents across the road at 77 Muswell Hill Broadway or at the Pinnacle. The area of Muswell Hill has been going through change and regeneration in terms of residential properties being built in close proximity of the premises. In terms of hospitality type venues, there is a late night kebab shop at 270, the venue at 272, and the Broadway at 266 Muswell Hill Broadway. Across the road is the public house Mossy Wells, which operates as a pub with a 1 a.m. licence. It is true to say that Muswell Hill Broadway has had its share of cumulative impact type issues as a result of the late night venues that were operating in the area, and each of the premises mentioned have had a premises license reviewed under previous management, except the Mossy Wells. The current license held by the Broadway is quite restrictive due to the imposed conditions from a review brought against management practices of the previous license holder. The reviewed license sought to restrict the way in which the premises could operate in order to ensure that the prevention of crime and disorder and the public nuisance could be better managed by the venue. The Haringey Statement of Licensing Policy states, densely populated residential areas are located in very close proximity to commercial areas, and that poorly managed premises can have a negative impact on nearby local residents. Looking forward, the licensing authority will continue to play its part in managing the growth of the late night economy. Premises trading beyond midnight pose the greatest risk of undermining the licensing objectives. We want to positively support well-managed businesses that will contribute to the borough's growing, vibrant and diverse evening economy. The operating schedule, the 2:30 a.m. closure on a Friday and Saturday night being requested needs to be carefully considered against the backdrop of the concerns raised by residents. The current operation, even with the restrictive conditions designed to stop the premises from being able to operate as a nightclub, has led to complaints relating to nuisance. The new application will certainly provide more freedom to the license holder if granted as applied. It is of the view of the licensing authority that some safeguards need to be put in place to ensure that the venue operation does not unduly impact on residents. The licensing authority proposed that the LSC consider a reduction in the hours proposed for Friday and Saturday nights to close to the public by midnight, as well as the additional timing for any Sunday immediately preceding a bank holiday Monday is rejected. The sound limiter to be installed has to be set in conjunction with the council's EHO to ensure no music can be heard in the nearest residential property. If, however, this committee consider the hours being requested are appropriate, then we ask that the following conditions, the conditions set out in my representation, be considered for any days the premises is operating beyond midnight. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Your report is very clear, and thank you. Are there questions from members? I will come to other people after that. I have questions from councillors, if there are any.
Can you hear me?
Reg, I can't see you yet, but I can hear you, yes.
Why can't you not
Do
see
you
me?
have a question?
Yes, I got a question. Could you
Please.
see me before? Could you see me before? Because I haven't altered anything.
Before I could see you, but now I can't, no.
Oh,
But I can hear you clearly, so please ask your question.
I just want to clarity on the DPS rule. My understanding of the rule is that the DPS should be available at all times once the establishment is open and trading. But this report says he's not been able to speak to the DPS, and he apparently is never there. So how does the establishment operate then without the DPS being in charge?
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Dadds has already given some response as to the situation with Mr. Savas Morgan, but in terms of the DPS role, the DPS is there to authorise the sale of alcohol on the site. They don't need to be on site at all times, but they should be contactable, basically. Mr. Dadds had already said a few words about Mr. Morgan, and if he wants to give some clarity further to you.
But
do you want?
If he's not there, he can't be performing the DPS role from some other part of the world, maybe, or can he?
Mr. Dodds, do you want to respond to that?
Yes, please. And I think it might be your legal advisor can assist, because we are not looking at the current license and its operation. We're looking at this application. So actually, we should be just looking forward, not back. But in relation to the DPS, I disagree with Mrs. Barrett that in relation to the DPS authorises the sale of alcohol. In fact, that is not the case. A personal licence holder authorises the sale of alcohol, and that not necessarily be a DPS. The statute, section 15, does not define, section 15 of the Act does not define the role of DPS. Under statutory guidance under section 182, it says normally day-to-day control, but the DPS is normally a point of contact, but they don't need to be present on the premises. There's many examples of that. So that there's no suggestion that there's been any impropriety in relation to the DPS not being present on the premises. And as you heard, Mrs. Morgan is always present and willing to assist the local authority should they require any help.
But she's not a DPS, is she?
No, but the law doesn't require it. But the legal advisor can advise you, councillor. I can't see you and I can barely hear you, but maybe the legal advisor can just clarify the position on law in relation to the DPS.
Well, I think the issue is that the DPS hasn't been the point of contact.
Can I be seen now?
Yes, yes.
You can,
Councillor, yeah. Been the point of contact rather than the DPS. I think that's the point that the councillor is making. He is supposed to be the point of contact, and he hasn't been contactable during the period of the license.
Yeah, to be honest with you, Mr. Dodds, looking at all these documents, he seems to be invisible. Nobody can. He doesn't respond to emails or telephone calls or different emails were given at different times, but it's no response whatsoever. So one has to ask the question, you understand? You know.
Yes, but as I say, madam, that there is no definition of what the role is at DPS. You just have to have one being nominated, and each premises can operate its premises as it sees fit. So there's no requirement that the DPS be there day to day, and each person will define its role. You've got a director of the company, the general manager, Bianca Morgan there day to day, and she has her contact, and Daly has been contacting her, other people have. And all I'm saying is that if we start debating about what's happened with the DPS on the other license, we are not dealing with this application. It's this application going forward. And as I've said already, I've agreed with the police that going forward, we will vary the DPS within 8 weeks. So it's this application we're dealing with, not the current license. And that, I think we're straying off looking at the other license.
No, okay. Thank you. Councillor Rice, you have any more?
Follow. If the committee was to determine that the new license having been granted will not include any trading whatsoever at the weekend, would that be permissible?
Pardon, could you ask the question again? Because I can't hear you very well, I'm afraid.
Well, I don't know.
Actually, Councillor Rice, I think that's maybe a question for me during your deliberations, rather than a question for...
What was the question, please? Could I hear it again? Because we haven't even heard from the parties yet. But could I hear the question again, please?
The question was, if the committee haven't considered all matters, then decided to grant a license but exclude the weekend operations within that license, would that be acceptable or allowable as opposed to acceptable?
Sorry, Councillor, who's that question to? I think you have to hear all the evidence.
At the moment, I'm taking questions for the licensing officer. So can we concentrate on that, please? And if you have questions for the Mr. Dodds, we deal with it afterwards.
Yes, because it can't possibly, at this moment in time, we can't possibly have a question like that insofar as you've not heard all the evidence or the party. So one should even be thinking of like that at the moment.
Can I ask, are there questions for the licensing officer at this point? Not from members, okay. From the objectors, you was a hand up earlier on, but it has gone. So I'm not quite sure whether any of the residents are with us if they have a question, because I can't see anything. There are no hands up, and no. Oh yes, there is one. Barbara Hall. I can't see you, but if you speak, yes. Oh yes, there you are. Okay.
I have a question, and it's to do with the license, the new request, the application. Agenda item 6, page 1 says the application seeks the following: regulated entertainment, live music and recorded music. Then you go to appendix 1, page 11, and it says, will there be live music? And it says no.
That question, I don't think is appropriate for the licensing officer. Please advise me, Michelle, if I'm wrong here.
Well, I think we need to know, do we not? We need to be clear what the license application is for.
Okay, perhaps you can ask.
Chair, can I?
Yeah.
Can I?
Yes, please do. Yeah.
Sorry, you said on which page? Page 11, was it?
Yes, page 11, so appendix 1. It says, will there be live music? And it says no.
Sorry, that's my typo then on the report, therefore. So the applicant is saying no, they won't be doing live music, but what you should need to bear in mind is that a license for on sales will allow a venue to be able to offer live and recorded music every day between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM without the need for that to be placed on the license. So they get that by exemption, basically, without it even needing to be stated on the license.
Is that for any venue?
For the regulated entertainment, for live music, quad music, they can do that between the hours of 8 AM and 11 PM each day if they get a license that allows them to do on sales at the venue.
Right, okay.
It's
Okay.
what's the beginning of C? It's a. They said
Could you, okay, if you finish your question, could you mute your microphone? Okay. I don't think there are any more questions. So is the police with us? Because I can't see anybody.
Madam, can I just clarify, please? Can the officers just confirm what page number I've got questions for the licensing officer. Is that possible? Because I haven't done that yet.
Yes, I did ask before, yes.
Oh, sorry, yes. Officer, can I just ask you what is the start of your representation, what page, and the conditions you refer to? Can I just have the page numbers? And then I've got a couple of questions for you, if I may.
Yes, of course.
I just want to make sure we've got the same page numbers.
Oops, sorry, my report's jumping. I'm just going to get you the exact number.
That's right, thank you.
My 124. My representation starts at page 105.
Right.
Yeah, through till page 108.
108. So let me just write that down. So page 105 and page 108. Yeah, that's your rep. Can I just ask what you were referring to other pages?
Yes. It was basically complaints I was referring to. So LA1, which is residents' complaints, which is pages 61 to 69.
61 to 69.
And then the warning letter to Mr. Savas Morgan, page 103.
Yep.
And then the noise complaints, list of noise complaints, page 93.
Yes. And did you put those in when you put your representation in?
Sorry, let me check when they were submitted. The list of complaints, yes, I did. Yes, they went with the representation.
It all went in with the rep, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, my questions in relation to the submissions. Did I hear you right to say that you've not witnessed any of the allegations of music, antisocial behaviour, drug dealing? Is that right?
That's correct. Officers have not witnessed it. It's what evidence the residents have submitted to us.
But in relation to officers of the licensing authority, you've got no evidence of drug dealing.
No.
No evidence of antisocial behaviour at the rear or the front.
We've got video footage from the residents.
Yes, but you officers, in the sense what you've witnessed.
Officers have not witnessed that. No.
No. Have you opened any lines of investigation regarding the complaints you've received?
Let me check. They each complaint has been forwarded to enforcement officers. So yes.
Yeah. And they'll have outcomes. Yes.
I don't know offhand, but I can find out for you.
Okay. But in relation to yourselves, it's only the one visit you've done, which is the 19th of November, yes?
There have been other visits, but 19th of November is where it was witnessed, noise nuisance was witnessed.
Okay,
sorry, the condition, alcohol, sorry, I apologize. Alcohol was being sold without meals, which is a direct breach.
But there was no noise music. No, there's no noise nuisance witnessed by you.
I will have to look back at the officer's report. Just bear with me.
Was you present?
No, I wasn't present, no. Apologies, I'm just going to the list of complaints that I submitted.
Of alleged complaints, yes?
Yes, and if you look at the list of complaints, it says where the officers have visited
Yes.
and what their findings were.
Yes, but you accept that they're alleged complaints until they're corroborated, yes?
Well, if they were only on one occasion have we had witnessed, yes.
Yes, but other than that, they're not.
They are
witnesses,
alleged.
They're not being, and they're alleged.
They
yes,
are alleged, yes.
because obviously this is a public recording, and you've set out originally about drug dealing, antisocial behaviour, as if it's a matter of fact, but in fact it's alleged. You've not witnessed
I
it.
stated they were complaints. I didn't say we witnessed. I stated they were complaints received from residents.
Okay, and so can I just confirm you accept that the current licence we're applying for matches exactly hours for hours? Yes.
What do you mean? Sorry, hours for hours to what?
That they're exactly the same hours that we already have on our licence. You know
yes.
that, yeah?
Yes.
Yep. And it only relates to the condition of moving, restricting the food condition, yes?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Madam.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Okay, and then now I'm coming to the police officers. If I can't see you, so please speak up. When you're ready, please present your report.
Good evening, everybody. My name is PC Justina Golotta. I work for licensing team in Enfield and Haringey. I am the one who have write up the representation. Would you like me to read the representation, or is it okay? Does anybody is familiar with it?
You just give your report the way you feel comfortable.
So basically, reviewing the new application, I do agree that we did have problems with contacting Mr. Morgan, but that has been sorted out, like Mr. Dads has stated, and we have agreed that if there will be a change of a DPS to Mrs. Morgan, then the issue will be resolved, basically. We have discussed also parking conditions, etc., etc. So that has been also discussed, and I was more than happy with what was proposed to us, which I'm going to get to in a moment. In my report, I have referred to designated premises supervisor not being contactable via emails. We had 3 emails. We had, I believe, 8 complaints directly to us through CAD in relation to nuisance and antisocial behavior. Again, nothing has been substantialized and nothing has been finalized. It was alleged complaints. It was basically just as a nuisance. So based on that, and because those issues has not been resolved with the police by Mr. Morgan as a DPS, I didn't feel comfortable with agreeing to the license on the new license application as he was named DPS. As mentioned before, that has been resolved recently with Mr. Morgan. We had a meeting with Mr. Morgan and with Mrs. Morgan, as well as Mr. David, and we have came to conclusions that if a DPS will be changed, and it will be changed within next coming weeks, which is what, 6 to 8 weeks, then we will be happy to withdraw the representation from ourselves. In relation to parking, there has been proposed of additional parking cones and additional security staff that will be visible around 11 p.m. to allow people's safety, to ensure that everybody is dispersing in the appropriate manner and that residents are not being disturbed. Also, we have been informed that the noise, what is it called? Sorry, I'm bad with terminology. That the noise box to verify
Limiter.
the noise.
Noise
yes,
limiter.
There you go. There you go. That's the one. has been installed and it will be used appropriately. So yeah, we have attended a couple of times. We have spoken to Mrs. Morgan as Mr. Morgan was not present. We do have contacts now to all members, both Mr. Morgan and Mrs. Morgan, and the legal rep as well. So we are now happy with what has been resolved.
Okay, I will take questions from members first. Can I ask you, you mentioned the parking at the back of the buildings, which I have seen all the videos, by the way, and as I understand, the parking was for residents, but so do you think those cones would be enough to stop people?
No,
that, yeah.
So Mrs. Morgan actually has proposed that she's going to make sure that on the website it's stated that parking is not permitted on the back of the property. Therefore, there will be no parking, and also there will be a security going around just to making sure that customers are not parking over there, and they will be advised to move the cars if they do.
Okay, thank you. All right, okay, thank you very much. Councillor Harrison, and then Councillor Rice. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Just on the fact that the Met are happy if the DPS is changed, do we have this in writing anywhere? And perhaps legal can advise on how this affects the application, our deliberations, because obviously we're determining things based on what's being brought for us today as of this date, not what's happening in 8 weeks' time. Perhaps if legal can just clarify.
So is that a question to myself or is that a question to Mr. Dadds?
I think it's a question to our legal advisor, Michelle. Shall we deal with that afterwards, I think?
I think it can easily be resolved anyway. Until the DPS is changed, there cannot be any sale of alcohol anyway. So on this licence. So I think the answer is that if the members are not satisfied granting it without the DPS at the moment, they would just say that Mr. Morgan won't be the DPS. And then it will mean the licence can be granted, and then we have to make the variation and go through the normal process. I hope that assists you. I'm sorry, I don't mean to usurp your own legal advisor.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you for the advice.
In that way, Councillor Harrison.
Okay. Do you have any other questions, Councillor Harrison? Okay, Councillor Rice.
Thank you. At the bottom of page 57, the very last paragraph, it says the police believes that Mr. Morgan have not fully upheld to his responsibilities as current DPS, mainly to act as primary contact to local government and the police. Now, subsequent to that, I understand you to say that you are now content that that no longer applies. Is that correct?
Yes, that has been resolved, thankfully, to Mr. Dadds, because we had actually had a meeting on Teams with Mr. Morgan literally days ago, and this is where we actually put through to him that he has to be, as a DPS, if he has to be contactable in one way or another, and therefore we have came to a conclusion that the DPS will be changed, where we are now satisfied that we not only have a contact to Mr. Morgan, which is direct contact, but we also have a confidence that Mrs. Morgan is the one that is actually primarily looking after the premises, and she's addressing all the issues.
Now, at page 59, the third paragraph from the bottom, it says the venue has demonstrated that they do not uphold fully to the current license and do not act to resolve the issues as it calls. As it stands, the venue is still contributing to antisocial behaviour.
Again,
you still stand by that phrase?
Again, that has been because the report has been put through to police as antisocial behaviour, and without being contactable, without us being able to contact the DPS, we cannot fully resolve the issues.
But
so
is the issue of antisocial behaviour something prevalent which you are still looking at?
So antisocial behavior is going to be anything from a nuisance to criminal activity. And usually when people are calling for antisocial behavior is when there is a loud crowd on the street behaving in slightly drunken manner, trying to leave the premises. And this is what we were trying to resolve with the venue. And now speaking with Mrs. Morgan, who is actually willing to accommodate and ensure that this is not happening, putting more security staff visible on the outside of the premises, so this is not happening in the future, and they are not associated no longer with that antisocial behavior. So yes, we have been satisfied within the last couple of days having those meetings with Mrs. and Mr. Morgan. So yeah, that no longer will be applying.
What satisfied your requirement? You say you have been satisfied. How was that achieved?
There has been a proposal on the dispersal policy where more security will be outside, visible, outside of the premises during the hours between 11 and closing, which will prevent and it will work as a deterrent for antisocial behavior.
Have you or any of your officers or any of other private security people have seen in action?
I personally have not seen an action, and I have been in a licensing position for quite short time. But my colleague, who is unfortunately unavailable today, has been actually dealing with this premises in particular, and he is the one trying to contact Mr. Morgan on the previous occasions and has visited the premises both during the day as well as in the evening.
What is he dealing with if you say antisocial behavior no longer exists?
I didn't say it hasn't exist. I said that we are satisfied that the venue will be doing, granting the new license, the venue will be doing everything in their power to solve that issue.
Okay.
Can I ask you, I understand what you say, and I do hope, I do hope things will, if they get the license, it will be different. But the videos I have seen, there is, on the pavement outside the premises, a lot of young men gather. It was obviously very antisocial behavior. And it was a woman, I could see a woman trying to, going backwards and forwards, wave her hands, trying to get them to leave basically. But nobody was taking any notice. I'm not quite sure who this woman was, whatever is Mrs. Morgan or not. So what I'm trying to say is, it needs a lot more than just somebody telling them to move, because they don't take any notice. They need somebody at the door. They need more, how can I put it, more robust, to get them moving, because, the young people had too much to drink. They don't take any notice. And it was so obviously on the videos I have watched. That was happening all the time. So as a police officer, I'm trying to, are you confident that it's not going to happen in the future?
Well, I cannot predict the future, ma'am. I'm sorry to say that, but I do believe that the venue deserve a little bit of a chance. And speaking to Mrs. Morgan and seeing what she is proposing, she is proposing more staff. She is proposing visible staff on the outside. She is proposing to have that extra measures. Therefore, I do feel confident that they do deserve a chance.
Okay. I have three hands up. One is Joyce Adams, one Barbara Hall, and then I will come to Mr. Dodds. So can I ask, the first one I think was Joyce Adams' hand, as I have seen. I can't see.
Okay, hi.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Ask your question.
Okay, well, I live at Ashmount Lodge, which is the building that basically is next door to the Broadway. And my question is, you mentioned that they will be putting more cones out regarding parking outside the venue. That does happen occasionally at the moment, and all that means is that instead of double parking illegally on the pavement, the patrons come and park in our car park. My bedroom is directly above one of the car parks at the back. They park and have loud music on, hooting, partying, windows down, music playing till 2:30 in the morning, sometimes later. It is impossible for me to, if I've gone to sleep, it's impossible for me to sleep through it. I get woken up. So my question is, you mentioned they will have security to stop people parking outside, but how will they physically stop people parking in our car park? Is someone going to stand and be a human barrier? I just don't see that really happening. I'd be interested to know your thoughts.
Well, as a police officer, I cannot answer that question, to be honest, because that is a question directed that should be directed to the venue. But as I mentioned, there has been a proposal from Mrs. Morgan that she even has applied for. She has written to Uber and other taxi companies, so there will be no pickups within the area and people will be advised to walk, etc., etc. So she is doing what she can, and we have to be objective in relation to this application. So I understand and I do appreciate that this is causing you an issue when it comes to where you live, and we are here to resolve that. So again, it's a committee. We have to be objective.
Okay, Barbara Hall, do you have a question?
Is that me?
Yes, it is. Yes.
You wanted confirmation that these things have happened from witnesses. Well, I live at number 77, which is directly opposite the venue. And I can only say that at 2 o'clock at night, we have loads of people coming out, screaming and shouting. They might have a few cones in the road. It doesn't make any difference to them because they park on the pavement. They park down our sideway in number 77. Women come out of there paralytic. They're drunk and they're vomiting. And this is what we see from our windows. Don't say, give them a second chance. You come and live here and give them a second chance.
Okay.
I think that's a statement rather than a question.
I was going to say, I want to ask the officer to respond to that. Now, Mr. Dodds, do you have any question to the officer?
Yes. Can I, before I ask my question, could I make an observation to the legal advisor and through you, Madam Chairman, is that there's a chat function and people are asking questions. I don't think the chat function should be used in that way.
Well, I'm not aware of that. I don't know what to say.
But there shouldn't be any use of the chat function during the meeting.
Yes, I don't disagree. Okay, do you have any questions?
Yes, please. Officer, can I ask you firstly, in relation to crime, any assaults or violence or criminal crime, has there been any in the last year at the premises?
Give me a moment. There have been one allegation of an assault in relation to the premises, but that has not been confirmed.
So there's no further action?
No.
Yeah, and no other matters?
No.
And has any antisocial behaviour been witnessed at all by the police service?
Not by the police, no.
And in relation to car parking or parking of motor vehicles,
we had no reports in relation to parking issues.
No, and it's fair enough to say that unless it's an obstruction, it's not for the police to deal with. Is that right?
Absolutely.
And it's my understanding you're satisfied that in the meantime, whilst Mr. Morgan in the next 8 to 6 weeks, you have contact details for him, but after that it will novate or go to Mrs. Morgan.
Yeah.
And you're satisfied as of today, you've got means of contacting the DPS?
Yes, that's correct.
And the matters regarding in your letter about antisocial behaviour, etc., are only allegations. They've not been investigated.
There are only allegations, and they have been partially resolved through Mrs. Morgan.
Comments, yes. All right, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much. I was about to move on, but then I want to be fair, I've seen a hand up. So Andy, I can't see who it is. But
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd just like to contest the comment about the police attending when there's been car parking violations, because I've actually reported it and I do have an incident number, and the police have did come out on that occasion. And that was an evening when we also had people that were inebriated sitting on our vehicles. And again, it's all been submitted through video evidence. So yes, I don't believe that that's a true statement to say that the police have not been here when there's car.
May I ask, when was the report? When was the incident?
I will get the date for you and I can provide that for you.
Excellent, thank you. I'm gonna look into that.
okay, right. Thank you very much. And now we come into the residents. I have a very long list of names, but I'm not sure who is with us or who wish to speak. So is it possible that you identify 3 or 4 people to speak, or if not, if you all want to speak, then I will ask you to be brief, please. And I have a list of names here. First one is Barbara Hall, which I can see if she's here with us. Barbara, do you have anything you want to say?
Yes, I'd like to clarify whether it's going to be operating as a nightclub, because previously it says it was not operated as a nightclub, and it's not being made clear what the intention is with the new premises license. But given that they're not going to be selling food with the drink, is that the intention? So that is a question. The reason we're here is obviously because we're very unhappy with the fact that even though they have been operating without a proper license to sell alcohol without food, that they have done this, and they've been infringing their license over the last 2 years, and they have been causing a nuisance. What we don't want is for our peace and quiet to be disturbed every weekend.
Young children.
We have many young children in this block, families who live at the front of the building facing the road, and it's 42 flats with another further 8 on the roof, which have been created since the Broadway was first granted a license. So this is in the last 6 years, number of people residents living in this area has increased enormously, but we have witnessed drug dealing down our side road, and we have had urination on the pavements, bottles dropped into our smashed outside our building, cars parked on the pavements, and obviously, it's not really fair to say that they are going to cone off the back streets, because even if they do, where are these people going to park? I mean, you can't expect people to walk to any. These are people coming from outside of the area to have fun, and it's just not a suitable area for that kind of the venue anymore. Now that the Pinnacle is being built to, I don't know how many families there are there, but I'm sure there's a considerable number, and obviously the people living directly above the building. So we're just very concerned that it's going to deteriorate further. So that's all we really have to say in the matter. Is that right?
I think so, yes. Yeah. And they have had people outside guarding the venue, and they just chat to the people out there. They don't get rid of them.
Right. So the Jocelyn is just saying that they're not effective in removing people when they do leave the premises. No. And in fact, Jocelyn went over to complain the other evening about the noise and that was coming from the building at what time?
It must have been about 2 in the morning, and he said that it takes time to get them out.
he said the manager who was on the door said it takes time to get people out of the building. So Jocelyn said, well, why don't you start getting them out a bit sooner, knowing that your closing time is for 2 o'clock in the morning. But he obviously, is not, operating to the kind of schedules that, they should be doing.
Okay, thank you. I will take the residents and then at the end of the residents, if there are any questions from councillors or the applicants, I will allow that. I've seen Steph Mount, is that correct? Roy, is that?
Hello, it's actually Keith Mount. It's got my wife's name, but it's me actually.
Oh, I see. Well, I wasn't sure. Okay.
Okay, I'm sorry about that. Yes, I live in Ashmount Lodge, which is directly above. First of all, I find it very offensive to say that because police or the nuisance people haven't actually witnessed this in person, that the suggestion is it can't be recorded or it hasn't really happened. We have phoned these lines, and if people haven't actually done their job, if the police haven't turned up when they should do to check regularly and haven't seen it, because it happens every weekend, I think that it should be taken note of. First of all, it is being run as a club. It wasn't supposed to be run as a club, so they've been breaking the rules on a regular basis. The noise carries on. It's not just the noise up until 2. The problem is afterwards, and of course the nuisance lines are closed after 2. So nothing is done. They are partying in the street, beeping their horns at people passing by, I'd be quite terrified to go into my car park if I had an emergency at night or I came back late at night, I'd be terrified to walk past the front because of people hanging around. And as a question of, I'm quite happy to say that I constantly smell the smell of marijuana as I walk past the front. So it's obvious, and people are coming out smoking, and you quite often find large numbers of people congregating outside, even when they have bouncers outside. They're supposedly smoking, but of course they're creating trouble while they're out there, and nothing seems to be done about it. I have no confidence that even if they have 4 or 5 bouncers, and they'll leave at 2 o'clock in the morning, and of course the people carrying on partying till 3 in the morning. That's my point. And I have horror in the thought that this license will be allowed. By the way, I'm Dr. Keith Mount. Thank you.
Apologies, doctor. I didn't know. I could only go by what I see in front of me. I have another name, but before I call, I think that our legal advisor wants to come in. Michelle, is there anything you want to add at this point?
Chair, it was just to say that Mr. Pepiot has responded in the chat, although you've asked that the chat not be used, but he's given, for the benefit of the police officer, details of the date that the police came and witnessed the car parking, which he says was the 12th of November. And
right.
he will need to locate the incident number.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Pepiot, I see you're typing in the chat. If you could perhaps speak to what you want to say.
Sorry, no, I'm not typing in the chat.
I'm
not typing in the chat. Sorry, I just wanted to. I wanted to just put it in there to avoid. I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the information that was being shared just then. So I went into chat. I'm not typing in it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. There is another name. Is this Flowers? FLOWERS? I don't know if it's.
Yes, it's my wife's computer I'm using.
Okay. Do you have? Okay.
So what it is that I heard earlier on the promise from Bianca Morgan of a noise inhibitor, and I had a conversation with her. I think it was in July 2021, and I had complained about the noise. I phoned the club, complained about the noise, and she says, "Oh, next week we're going to have a noise inhibitor." Now, the noise inhibitors never materialised. I would urge the council not to grant this licence because it's an irresponsible licensee. It's an irresponsible licence holder who flagrantly has breached the conditions already on the extant licence. And the idea of affording this licensee, an irresponsible licensee, more liberty to further breach and cause distress to people, homeowners in a tight-knit residential area is ridiculous. I would urge you not to, please do not grant this licence.
Thank you. I can't see any more hands up.
Could I have the name? Could I have the name of the individual who just spoke? Sorry, because I haven't got it. I apologise. I just need to make a note of the name.
My name is Sebastian Oliver.
Thank you. Can I see where? Can I see? Sorry, could I just see where that representation is, please? On what page?
The other thing that I wanted to say was that there is more nuisance.
Sorry, Chair. Can I interrupt, please? Can I interrupt?
Yes,
Sorry.
yes.
Whilst I can agree that there is a representation from Miss Flowers, I'm not aware of
the difficulty I have, Delia, is that I see different names and people use other people's computers. So
agreed, Chair.
Yeah.
Agreed. And once, you know...
Madam, can I interject? I believe we've just had a representation from a party that's not made representation.
That hasn't made representation directly. Yes.
So therefore, I ask that this hearing be adjourned and we have another date for another hearing, please, because I've dealt with a number of appeals before. You can't have an interested party making representations, not made a representation.
I hear you, but as far as I don't know what my colleagues think, but I think we are
to what his relationship is with Miss Flowers, when he was speaking on her behalf.
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
No, I'm sorry. We can't be leading the individual. He's made the representation. And we can't correct that error. He should not have been. He should not have been party to the proceedings, and he's made representation, and actually has made a number of points which actually are not written down in advance. So actually, on that basis, we're not getting a fair hearing.
Okay,
Sorry, I just finished.
Just a minute.
Sorry, may I finish, madam?
Mr. Dabbs made your representation, but I'd like to hear from Mr. Oliver as to what his relationship is with Miss Flowers, because he's showing on the screen as Miss Flowers.
Yes. So what I would say, finishing my
I'm part of a group called Muswell Hill Residents Association, and we have made countless complaints to the noise nuisance team, to the police, and I've been liaising with the noise nuisance team, and there have been numerous examples of where we have complained. I don't have the list of dates to hand.
So, madam, if I can finish my representation.
Can you please just stop? So, can one of you speak at one time? Can I ask Michelle first, and then Mr. Dodds after, and then our licensing officer, Michelle?
Yes, Mr. Can you explain why you're coming up as Miss Flowers? Is she with you?
Yes.
You're coming up on our screens as Miss Flowers.
Miss Flowers is sitting beside me.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
Hello.
Okay. Thank you.
So did you ask Mr. Oliver to speak on your behalf? Why was he speaking and not you? That's what I'm trying to establish.
Because I've contacted Muswell Hill Residents Association because I've been very unhappy and disturbed by Miss Morgan not doing the things that she promised, which is one of the things was the noise inhibitor, and also the other things that other residents have raised.
Right, so that representation was the Muswell Hill Residents Association representation rather than yours. Is that what you're saying, or was that your representation? I think Miss Barrett's got her hand up.
Mine chimes with that, the Muswell Hill Residents Association.
Yeah, that's
Can
not
I-
the same thing.
Okay, I think we understand. We
Chair,
understand.
can I give clarity to that, please? Miss Flowers.
No, can we stop for a minute?
You come back. You come back in a minute.
Sorry, Mr. Dad, can I finish, please? Miss Flowers' representation starts halfway down page 38 onto page 39, and it is in her name as Miss Sinead Flowers. It is not under Muswell Hill Residents Association or anything like that. It is purely within her name alone.
I have liaised with Muswell Hill Residents Association, and I have made my representation.
Thank you. Okay, Mr.
That's correct. You have made your own representation as Miss Flowers, yes.
Chair, Chair.
Right, Chair, in that case, my advice would be that the representation made by Mr. Oliver is actually unauthorized.
And I was just about to say before, listen, that we are all experienced councillors. We've been doing this for a long time. We were more than able to, when it comes when we're having a discussion after this meeting, we're more than able to decide what we should be considering and what we shouldn't. And I do understand, Mr. Dodds, what you're saying, and I can assure you that we will only take into account the written statements. And Councillor Rice.
Yeah, look, Mr. Dodds has made an application to the committee to adjourn the hearing.
I was going to call.
Just a minute, that application must be fully considered.
Yeah.
And it cannot be considered in this way. The way it can be considered is to have a brief adjournment, take advice from a legal officer, and then return giving the results of that advice and or actions that followed on.
Okay.
And I'd like to finish
That's what
my
we need to do now.
I'd like to finish my application too.
Yeah. So, Mr. Dodds, you want? I was going to come next to you. You want us to adjourn, or do you want to carry on?
I'd like to make a representation, please. Could you hear me just for a couple of minutes while I speak? Thank you very much. Look, I do ask that this matter be discontinued. The reason why is you've heard from the Muswell Hill Association, Sebastian Oliver, who is not an interested party to the proceedings. Notwithstanding that, and it's been clarified that it mirrors someone else, but that's not the same and not allowed. In relation to your discretion, unfortunately, the legislation is very clear that other parties are only those that made representation in 28 days. You're not allowed to hear from any other party, and I will not be satisfied, and I think the court will not be satisfied that you will disapply that representation you've heard. You've heard it. These hearings should be properly managed, and that in effect you've heard from a party you shouldn't have heard from. So on that basis, so that we can get a fair hearing, I ask that this matter be brought to an end, and that a new date and new hearing put forward at a date that's convenient to all the parties.
Right. Okay. First of all, in my defense, I want to say that I have no way of knowing who's going to come up. I saw the name Flower, and I thought that's what.
No, I make no criticism. Can I say I make no criticism at all? I think it's just one of these things with Zoom. So there's no criticism. I will not be charging my client to come back, but I just want to make sure it's done correctly and fairly.
Can I ask, please, we have a break for 5 minutes, and the councillors and our legal advisor, we have a brief discussion. Come back in 5 minutes, and we take it from there. Is that agreeable?
Agree.
Okay, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask the councillors and the legal officers to remain?
Just give me a couple of minutes.
Naz?
Can I ask the residents, please, to leave us for 5 minutes, and Councillor Rice to come back?
Sorry,
I think
Chair,
you may
would you
have to
like
remove
me to
people.
leave as well?
Sorry?
Would you like me to leave as well? I'm a police officer.
Yes.
We'd
Yes.
like everyone to leave,
Yeah,
please.
for 5 minutes, yeah? Thank you.